Hello, everyone. How you doing? Mike just vanished all of a sudden. That's all right. We'll get him back. Doing well today. Got some stuff to talk about. I'll tell you what's funny is the lots stuff to talk about actually. What's really funny is the whole Ilya Kovalchuk thing, and when you're looking for rumors from Russia, what that's like. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, that's a whole different game because everything's a rumor in Russia, even what's believed to be real. But here's, the funny thing is, I told Mike this offline. Ilya Kovalchuk, I covered his draft, right? And I thought he was a good kid. I thought this was a tremendous talent, maybe even an all-time talent. Like you just saw he had everything you need to be a good hockey player. But then you may have even been with me in the grouping of like his first games, maybe his first week, first month in Philly. We're waiting for him. We're going to talk to him, and he sneaks out of the training room out the back door after Atlanta's PR kind of keeps us waiting, and he never interviews with us. And I always had in the back of my mind after that he was that kind of guy. I think he matured a little in New Jersey. I think Lou made him, but he had a good relationship with Lou, so I think that worked. But in most places, Ilya Kovalchuk has burnt out his relationship everywhere he's been.
Yeah, that's a good point. He really liked New Jersey.
Can you hear me?
People did not realize. Yeah, I can hear you. I hear you.
Okay.
People had no idea how much, he actually, and a lot of people, rip on New Jersey, but he actually really liked playing for the Devils. He did like Lou. You're right about that.
Well, and Russ and I were, like Russ was saying, we were talking about this before. I mean, Kovalchuk to the Leafs would make sense starting, say, next year as a stopgap, as a couple years, bringing in a guy who's obviously has a resume. The Lou relationship is there. They need something while the team is being rebuilt, and if he has anything left, and that would be productive. But taking what you just mentioned in your blog before the show, they don't want him now. The last thing they want is him now.
Well, here's the thing,
and he has to clear waivers through all 30 teams to be able to sign with somebody, because Radulov had to do the same thing. I could see him going back to the Devils because the Devils need players, need some additional scoring, and that would make sense. And maybe they sign him to a prorated one-year deal, and then he's a UFA at the end of the year. But there's no way Toronto is signing him right now. I would doubt it.
It's I thought so too.
Connection is the connection for sure.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I obviously doesn't when I write about the fact that in one sentence I'm saying that he has to sign by the trade deadline to actually be eligible for the playoffs. The Leafs aren't a playoff team, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
There's that thing, but I think there's more to it than that. I don't think it. Sometimes these things are not about that. I think the timing of it. Could come down to more about money, like him signing by a certain point to make enough money. I've heard, but there's other things as well, and I do think that you're right that Kovalchuk doesn't make sense for the Leafs right now. But if Lou thinks that Kovalchuk's still got 5 years left in him, he might just take the year now and then say, okay, we'll see the. It depends, it depends what Kovalchuk has left in him.
Well, that's why I said if it was a prorated one-year deal. First of all, Edmonton, New Jersey's got a ton of cap room, so they could sign him conceivably to a $8 million one-year deal prorated, which would get him a couple $1,000,000 for the last quarter of the season.
Right.
Then he's a UFA. Then he can go anywhere. And then if he wanted to go to Toronto or if he wanted to sign back with New Jersey, there's no limitation.
Yeah, but what's the height now for Kovalchuk? I don't know if he's getting more than 20 goals in a season anymore because the work ethic has never been there. It was better in New Jersey than it ever was in his career, and he put up good numbers. He didn't put up superstar numbers. He's not putting up superstar numbers across the pond. And in Russia now they're sitting him, and they took his captaincy away, which even though it's Russia, NHL teams are going to look at that and say, do we really want to bring this guy in our room?
Well, Russ, you got to factor in one thing here. I mean, is this the typical Russian retribution for a player who says he's going to go to North America? Because because remember, and I think it was a tournament in the Czech Republic or in Finland, the defenseman who the Leafs are reportedly going to sign, Nikita Zaitsev. At that tournament, he's the best defenseman or one of the best defensemen. I think it was on CSKA Moscow, and he was on this team. and his ice time was cut. Why? Because he's not going to re-sign in the KHL. They were giving more ice time to a younger player who was staying in the K for a number of years. So this could simply be retribution by CSKA St. Petersburg to say, okay, we know you're leaving, so why not cut strings with them now?
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. I do. That's
It's a
pretty much dead on to what I heard. I mean, I couldn't really say it, but what you're saying is pretty close. I mean, there's actually some stuff that, let's start the show. We actually haven't started the show, so let's introduce the show.
I just want to say, in his last year, he had 31 points in 37 games. 83 points the year before. I mean, you're lucky if you're getting 50, 55 points at the max for him.
And your concern is justified. I mean, I would be very skeptical about what I'd be getting back in a 33-year-old Kovalchuk. But New Jersey's in a situation where they don't want to trade draft picks. They don't have, they don't have a ton of young assets. Maybe they don't want to dip into the rental market. And here's a guy they can get for nothing if they just offer him a prorated one-year deal.
Yeah.
And Devils fans can dust off the Kovalchuk jerseys the same way the Jets fans dusted off the Rivas jerseys. They save money. It's good for everybody.
It's good for everybody. And the Devils, they have the cap space to pull something like this off. I mean, that's the one thing about the Devils. It's interesting. There aren't many teams that can pull it off because it's going to cost a lot of money. Even though you're not getting much from him, he's not going to be cheap. So, and I think
do you think he's a Hoboken guy?
Well, yeah, I'd say he's a good Hoboken guy. He likes to go to Carlos Bakery and hang out and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
He likes to cross the state line and get hoagies.
Yeah, no question. He's found hanging out in the West Orange Library, things like that. That's where I think see him up there for sure. All right, let's start the show. Wednesday, February 24th. Shingles are kicking my ass. All right, here we go. Ready? Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday, February 24th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen, and I'm asking everybody in our audience to please give me a standing ovation for the hard work that I do every day on this show. Thank you. Now I'm no different than David Ortiz. Thank you.
What are you referring to? I'm totally.
David Ortiz of the Boston Red Sox said that when he goes to Yankee Stadium, they should give him a standing ovation since it's his last time there. And players of any sport of 20 years ago would never even utter those words. And this guy's been caught for steroids. He's a good guy, but he's been caught for steroids a couple times, and it's just kind of funny that he's asking for this.
See, this is the difference between a guy like Derek Jeter and a guy like David Ortiz. Derek Jeter didn't have any expectations of what the Boston fans at Fenway Park were going to do, and classy fans that they are, they gave him a standing ovation when they took him out of the game in his final game. Here, the sense of entitlement with David Ortiz, who is clearly as much of a steroid cheat as A-Rod is that, the Yankee fans should bow and scrape in front of the great Ortiz and give him an ovation. I hope they boo. I hope they do a Ducky Medwick and throw glass bottles at him.
Oh boy!
Wow. All right.
It's insulting. It's really insulting. You expect it. I mean,
Yeah.
Just so
you should never ask for a standing ovation.
Ducky Medwick was like 1954 or something. Just so you know.
Yeah, that is the absolute most obscure
going way
baseball
back.
records.
1930s Gas House Gang, St. Louis Cardinals. 37 World Series. They had to pull them off the field in Detroit because the Detroit Tigers fans were throwing glass bottles at them.
See, I thought it was in the 50s. There you go.
Oh, man. All right, I came up with somebody sent me this, and it's amazing. This is an amazing list, okay? We always talk about the trade deadline. We talk about how effective really it is. Like, what, for all the teams give up, what do they really get out of this? Like, what players actually turn into something significant? What players actually help their teams along the way? And there's actually a list that was sent to me of the most points in the remainder of the season by players traded on deadline day since 1979. All right, so this is really a fascinating list. Now remember the trade deadline back, I think it changed in like 1998 or 99. We used to be 26 days before the season end. ended. That now it's 40. All right, so we've gotten more of a. It's changed a lot since then, but still, these games played. You can still go straight off of games played. And this list is literally the craziest list I've ever seen, because I wouldn't even have you try to guess this list, because these players, the best players that have performed after being traded, none of these guys are superstars. It's the most insane thing you'd ever. I mean, all right.
Now, is it just for the remainder of that season?
Just for the remainder of the season. What happens from the point they're traded on out?
I feel confident I can name one guy on that list that's pretty high up.
Go for it.
Butch Goring
is not on this list.
How could he not be on there?
Did not. I mean, it just didn't put up. Well, this is in '79. So when was that? Yeah, it was in there.
Oh, it was in the '80s.
How about 1994? Glenn Anderson with the Rangers.
No, there's 14. There's 14 players they have on here.
Okay.
So this is the
Anderson
top 14.
didn't do as much as people thought. He was more of a hanging out with Mark Messier in the room guy.
Give us the year and the team, and we'll name the player. Because
all right, in 2009, 2010 was the most successful trade really of all time.
What team?
And that player went to the Colorado Avalanche, and you would never guess who this is. This player had 20 points in 15 games as a member of the Colorado Avalanche. That's the most points that anyone's ever had. There's some players who've had played less games, but just flat out points. That's the most points.
And wasn't that the team that made the playoffs? Craig Anderson, wasn't that was the Craig Anderson year where he stood on his head? They lost to, I think, I don't know who they lost to in the playoffs, but
this player is no longer in the NHL.
Yeah, I figured.
But he's not. He should be. He just isn't. Like he's not. It's not like he's too old to be in the NHL. He just isn't in the NHL anymore. 2009, 2010.
Somebody. Well, I don't think he was playing then. I was gonna say like Steve Duchesne, but I don't think Duchesne was playing then anymore.
No, this is not like you would think that way, but
it's got to be a forward. 20 points in 15 games.
Yeah,
Peter Mueller. Peter Mueller.
Wow.
Is the most successful trade deadline acquisition of all time.
And I love Peter Mueller as a rookie, and then he had all those concussion problems, and then he did put it together. Yeah.
They got him from Arizona, I believe.
Yep, from Phoenix at the time. Actually, we can say Phoenix. So in 1996-97 comes the next one.
Mm-hmm.
This player was traded from Calgary to the New York Islanders. He had 12. He played only 12 games because that was we were shorter at that point. He played 12 games and had 19 points in those 12 games. Wow. 1996-97.
It's got to be a forward again, obviously.
Yeah.
This is a forward. The next one's a defenseman.
Let me think. 96-97 Isles.
The most popular. This is crazy. This is such a crazy list.
You're saying he's a popular player?
No, he isn't. I mean, it's like he's one of those guys on trade deadline that we would talk about, of course, if he was traded. But he would be in the second, by far, like the second or third tier. That's true with most of these players.
Yeah.
That would be Robert Reichel.
Robert Reichel.
God.
19 points in 12 games after being traded from the Calgary Flames to the Islanders.
Yes.
The next
just
one.
name the list. We're never getting these guys.
I know. I'm just going to give one more because this is really good too.
I have nightmares about Robert Reichel. But
this is the last one here. Is a defenseman traded from the Buffalo Sabres to the San Jose Sharks in 2007-08 in the 2007-08 season. Went from Buffalo to San Jose. He played 20 games. He scored 19 points as a member of the Sharks. I don't think any of us even remember he played for the Sharks.
I mean, I'm going to just say Jason Woolley because he's in my mind, but probably not him.
Well, it's not Doug Bodger, is it?
Nope.
Buffalo.
He was obviously. What's funny about some of these guys is they were UFAs, so they only played. These are the only games they ever played for some of these teams, and I think that's the case with this guy. This would be one Brian Campbell.
Damn it! I was just like, give me a chance, but.
I'm sorry.
You weren't getting it. Come on.
No,
I'll read you the rest of the list.
I know the Sabres. I would have.
I'll just gotta do the next one because it's a Toronto guy. The next one was traded from the Toronto Maple Leafs to the Phoenix Coyotes in 2009-10. 2009-10.
Lee Stempniak.
Very good. 18 games played, scored 14 goals.
Yep, I remember that.
For the Phoenix Coyotes and had 4 assists in 18 games.
Yep.
After that, you go to Jeff Halpern, who was traded from Dallas to Tampa in 2007-8. Mm-hmm. Steve Tambellini, who was traded from the Islanders to the Avalanche in 81. Mm-hmm. Wojciech Wolski, who was traded.
Yeah,
who was traded from Colorado to Phoenix in 2010. Russ Courtnall, who's traded from Dallas to Vancouver in '95. Mike Gartner, probably the biggest name on the list, and that so far, traded from Minnesota to the Rangers in '89-90.
Wow.
And as a member, the Rangers had 16 points in 12 games in that little period of time.
And then he got dealt before he won a Stanley Cup ring because Mike Keenan didn't like him.
Yeah.
Right. Sergei Samsonov traded from Boston to Edmonton in 2005 and 6. And, of course, that's the Edmonton. They had a great run with Edmonton in that year.
How many points is the lowest?
The lowest is 16 points in 19 games.
All right, because you know what? Butch Goring had 11 points in 12 games. So
yeah, so that's definitely, you're right. Yeah, that's
a product of the later trade deadline.
Right. But there are some guys in here like,
Gardner had 19 points in 21 playoff games, so I think I got a little redemption. He did have a lot of points.
Yeah, but the thing is with this list is the acquisitions are not focused on the remainder of the regular season per se. They're focused on what they can do for those teams in the playoffs.
No, that's true, and that's why I bring up Samsonov, who that was a huge player for Edmonton in the playoffs that year.
I still contend Butch Goring is the best pickup ever.
That is the classic trade deadline guy for sure.
Because he got 11 points in 12 games. He had 19 points in 21 games in the playoffs.
Marty St. Louis, the year that the Rangers go to the finals, I'm sorry, he was a significant contributor.
Yeah, they weren't getting to the finals without him and everything that surrounded his story. No way.
And you could make a case, even though I don't think he ended up being worth a first-round pick, that Antoine Vermette, who scored 4 goals for the Hawks, I think he scored a couple key goals of those 4 goals. They may not have won the Stanley Cup if Vermette wasn't on the roster.
Right. No, you're right. There's no question.
But the old trade deadline didn't allow enough points. That's where I make my case. Yeah.
Sure. And if you want to go way back, even further back than the Butch Goring deal in the in 70s.
Are you going to mention Bill Cook? How far back do you go?
I was going to say Andy Bathgate in '64 when
Andy Bathgate.
When the Rangers traded Andy Bathgate to the Leafs. In the end, the deal hurt the Leafs because they traded a bunch of young players at that time for a guy who was aging, but Bathgate gave him a jump. Gave them another player that helped them win their 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup. So, there are deals out there that are beneficial to teams who win cups that they can make at the deadline. I think it's a fallacy. Now, I almost think it's sort of general managers trying to lower expectations and lower the price that teams would demand at the deadline because they're saying, well, deadline deals don't pay off. Well, they do.
Yeah. If there's one thing, how we always say if we could get in the Wayback Machine and do something, if we could get in the Wayback Machine and do something, when Tim Horton was traded to the Rangers, I would go back in the Wayback Machine and be a partner with him trying to open up one of his franchises in Manhattan. Because I don't know why he didn't do it. Why didn't he do it? People in New York ate plenty of donuts.
True.
Yeah.
He could have made a killing on that.
That's a good point. The last thing personal said about this list is Marian Gaborik, who was the most recent, was the when traded from Columbus to LA, which was a really big one. Put up 16 points in 19 games. So that's the most recent. Matthew Lombardi's on this list too, with 16 points in 19 games. He was traded from Calgary to Phoenix.
Now, Jeff Carter, when he was traded from Columbus to LA, that wasn't a deadline deal. That was earlier, correct?
Right.
All right.
These are players traded on deadline day. Mark Recchi, when he was traded from Tampa to Boston in 8-09, had also 16 points. But
okay.
Yeah, it's a fun list.
It's a fun list, though. It is. I agree.
Because when you think about what we talk about on trade deadline day, and I've always been a firm believer that the smaller trades are the ones that actually make a bigger difference quite often, and this kind of shows that to a degree because none of those were the major gets for those trade deadlines.
See, and I go back to yesterday where I say the Rangers could use Dale Weiss. I think the Rangers would have gone a long way in maybe beating the Devils if they had a guy like Weiss. I'll tell you what annoys me about Kevin Hayes, right? Even though he scored a goal, on the tip-in from Tyler Kennedy, which, again, Tyler Kennedy has always victimized every other team in the East that he's not been on, right? So if he's on Pittsburgh, he kills the Rangers and the Flyers, and whatever team he's on, he always seems to victimize an East team. And he's set up in the slot, and Kevin Hayes is literally just sort of standing around him and just watches Damon Severson shoot a point shot and does nothing to move Tyler Kennedy out of the crease, who deflects it right past Lundqvist. And I'm thinking, how do you even play hockey and you don't even try and push him with your size and you just sort of stood behind him and let Tyler Kennedy get inside position? That's what drives the Rangers crazy about Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's definitely one of the, not a detail-oriented player. Like there's a lot of little things like that. He's sort of plays on emotion, and there's little
Sure, he scored a goal, but like that was more important than the goal he scored.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's really interesting. So, all right, let's move on to okay. So obviously
one more thing. Did you see the JT Miller fight?
No.
He had tape on his hands.
Oh, really?
So yeah, Mike, see if you can pull up the video while I'm chatting about it. If people didn't see
right?
it. Yeah, so he fought Kalinin, who was not known for fighting, but Kalinin's a strong Russian kid in his first year. We liked him at the start of the year. If you remember, we talked about him. And so him and Miller fight, and when Miller's gloves come off, you can see there's a little something, but everybody's focusing on, well, maybe his jersey wasn't tied down, what was going on. And then when they zoom in on his hand, you could see that on the lower portion of his hand, like an Iron Mike Sharp in the WWE, he had it all taped up, and that was his punching hand. And you're not allowed to cut a guy with tape on your hand like that, so you got a match penalty. Yeah,
that's good. I mean, that's like put the foil on. Come on, let's get going.
It was. It was like put the foil on. It was crazy. And this is the first instance of this happening that I can remember in many, many years.
Yeah.
And Vigneault was pissed, and you got to wonder, are they mad at the trainer? Are they mad at the player? Like, those are the two guys who get the heat for that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely two guys that get the heat for that. That's crazy. This you'll love. This is for Mike specifically. This comic strip about the Maple Leafs. I don't know if you saw this, Mike. You probably did.
Yeah. No.
All right, so this one, which I saw, I really like this a lot. The if you're just listening, go get him, kid. Thanks, Lou. And then, gosh, Lou sure has been extra supportive lately. Yeah, I noticed that too. This is awesome. It's
Great. The Leafs are like the Washington Generals now. They are. That's what I posted this morning.
Yeah.
Stop. Yeah. No. I see. This is the thing. I told Russ this yesterday, and it sort of infuriates me as somebody who, I cover the team and I'm professional, but deep down I think we're all fans of particular teams. Last year I applauded what the Sabres did in regards to going for McDavid or Eichel, and I think that's a tactic, and it's a tactic that teams are employing. But now all of a sudden, there are reporters and fans and other things out there who are cracking jokes about the Leafs and how pathetic they are and how blatant this tank is, and I'm like, okay, this is a tactic. I don't remember the Sabres getting so roundly ridiculed until they traded goaltenders who were actually making saves.
Right.
The Leafs haven't done that. They're probably going to trade Reimer before February 29th, but they're not stripping it down so far that it's an embarrassment. I mean, hell, they lost to Nashville last night 3-2. They were down 3-0. They came back. They came within a hair's breadth of tying the game. They don't have a lot of talent. They have a lot of young players who are trying to prove themselves. They're clearly aiming to be in the bottom of the league, but that was the direction this entire season. But they haven't embarrassed themselves. They're just not a very talented team.
Not yet. They're not there yet. Yes. They could get there though, depending on what happens. Now Babcock will try and keep that from happening, but the only one more embarrassing than the Leafs is the Edmonton Oilers, and Todd McClellan called them out.
Yeah, and I said it last night, and I watched the remainder of the second and all the third period against the Ottawa Senators. I have never seen a team with such raw, natural talent be so horrible in my entire life. It's amazing how bad that team is with such good talent and good young talent on their roster. I mean, and I can't blame Todd McClellan. I can't blame Peter Chiarelli because they inherited this joke of a situation. It's a group that all they have been used to and all they do is lose. And one of the things that they should have done is blow things up. But I think they wanted Chiarelli and McClellan wanted a year to evaluate. Well, McClellan comes out in the post game yesterday and basically says this team, he not in so many words. He said this team was gutless. And that there are a few players out there who are trying, but there are other players who are waiting around for something to be done. And you know what? You can't be that way. You got to go out every game and try and win some, lose some. But this team seems to be waiting for somebody else to do something. And players of the talent level that they have, they shouldn't be losing as many games as they are.
And at what point, Russ, for you, like, do young prospects who are great players become affected by this kind of situation?
I think there's a point where they're affected now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the youngest ones because McClellan's there. So,
Right.
like, Draisaitl's not affected. Matt, you're not going to be able to. Connor McDavid's not affected. But do I think it affected Sam Gagner? Yes. Do I think it's affected Eberle? Yes. I don't think it's affected Taylor Hall because I think he was just always sort of like a physical freak and would get through these games no matter what and still show off his talent. Yeah. But he's gone 6 years without the playoffs. At some point, that could affect him too.
Yeah.
But it's bad. It's bad for these guys. Now everybody's complaining about Justin Schultz. It's like, I would have traded him a year ago. I've been down on Justin Schultz forever because he's just a one-dimensional guy on a team that is very one-dimensional. There's not a lot of work ethic on this team, but there is a lot of skill, and there's a lot of fancy play, and there's a lot of no-look passes, and that's great. But that's not great at the NHL level when you're trying to actually put wins on the board.
Yeah, and are they the only team in the NHL who right now has a number 1 pick playing third-line wing? Yakupov.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rumors are now there's going to be a sacrificial lamb to this whole thing, and whether it's Yakupov or whether it's Nugent Hopkins, somebody is going to go, I think, and I don't know if it's going to be at the deadline, but it's going to happen maybe at the draft. But I think someone's going to go, and
it's probably going to be Nugent Hopkins, but I don't think it's his fault. But I think that's the guy it's going to be.
It won't be Nugent Hopkins at the deadline because he's injured and he won't be back.
No, I know, but at the draft it will be.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it sounds like because Chiarelli made some mention yesterday about the willingness to move some of the core players in either a press conference or a statement. I mean, please, overstate the obvious because you cannot come to any other conclusion than the core group, like the core group in Toronto, would never win. That you have to blow it up. And in Toronto they've moved Phaneuf, they've moved Kessel. They're probably going to move a couple other pieces like a Kadri or a Bozak either before the deadline or in the summer. You just have to start over. In Edmonton, you're not moving McDavid, you're not moving Draisaitl, you're probably not moving Taylor Hall because he's such a good talent. But Eberle, Yakupov, Nugent Hopkins, bye-bye. Get a good return. But
I had a great discussion with a guy who's a season ticket holder for 1,000,000 years last winter. And last winter, everybody was beside themselves, just feeling awful about this team. Then there was a little bit of resurgence with McDavid. Some felt it was going to help him right away. I thought it was too much to put on a rookie, and it definitely is. And now I'm going to tell you, even if they got Matthews for next year, they're still going to be just slightly better than they are now, which is still shit. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to change that. Sorry.
Shinny hockey? Yeah, they're playing shinny hockey. No question. No, you're right. It's well said.
Yeah, and it literally is an embarrassment that we're 60 games into the regular season, and we pretty much generally accepted that Toronto had one of the worst rosters going into the season. They had some veteran guys, but they were clearly going to be in the bottom 5. Edmonton has a lot of talent. And 60 games into the season for the Edmonton Oilers, even though McDavid was out for half of the year, for them to be at the same level as the Toronto Maple Leafs in the standings is insane.
If you plugged in the Edmonton Oilers into like NHL 16, they're not coming in last place.
No.
Right.
No, they're not. And then the fact is, you have to wonder, if Babcock had the Edmonton Oilers roster in Toronto, how good they would be,
Oh, it would be a whole different team.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys would probably not be playing. That's the issue.
Well, that's the thing. But the guys that wouldn't be playing aren't the guys we're talking about. My whole contention with the Oilers all along has been their lack of attention to their third and fourth liners and fourth or third through eighth defensemen. Those are the guys that they really completely ignore, and that's why the guys up top, they really aren't the problem. I don't think they're the problem. I mean, they might not be performing to the level you want them to perform at, but the bottom line is those guys are,
See, I think
nice character players behind them.
All right, but here's a good example. I didn't like the Clefbaum signing. Mike didn't like it. You were sort of okay with it, but not thrilled with it.
Yeah.
In 30 games, he has 12 points. He's a -4. How much money is Oscar Clefbaum getting?
4.16.
He's got 12 points, Eck.
No, I know, but again, I'm going to say that Clefbaum's not really about a point. It's not really a points guy. That's not really his thing. So.
Well, see, I think the argument is flawed because what we've said and what we've looked at over the last few years is it's not the problem of the top guys. It's the problem that they don't have depth. So they go out and they add Benoit Pouliot. They add Matt.
Which was good, I think. They've made some good things,
but they add depth, and the depth makes no difference. They still suck. That's the problem. So it's process of elimination. If you've got a group and all of a sudden you have a better support structure, you have veteran forwards helping out the young forwards.
Yeah, you can't tell me in this day and age that scouts are all missing on all these players.
No,
I mean, these are good players.
No, the design, and I'm not saying Pouliot's not a good. He proved that he was a good support.
He was really good with the Rangers, obviously.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not slagging him. What I'm saying is the design, the structure, the philosophy with the Edmonton Oilers has been flawed from the very beginning. They needed to trade one of those top guys for a top defenseman, and they refused to do it because they were afraid that if they moved to Nugent Hopkins for a young defenseman, that they would get excoriated if Nugent Hopkins went somewhere else and succeeded. You can't think that way. This team is flawed. You need defensemen, and Darnell Nurse and Oscar Clefbaum is not enough. You need somebody in his mid-20s who can solidify that defense and play 25 minutes a night, and they've never gotten that guy.
I think they need to trade two of them now. I do, and I told you, look, and Cam Talbot's not having a horrible year. He's got a .910 save percentage. I mean, it's not really Cam Talbot's fault. It's bigger than that. But I would say this, with Darnell Nurse, like I told you a couple weeks ago, I was sort of like not happy with the fact that I saw him fighting. It's like he shouldn't really be up there fighting. Should he play physical? Sure. But Darnell Nurse should be the guy that's sort of getting groomed to be a top guy for them. How often do you want your defenseman fighting? It's like it's not a good move, and so that's why I think a lot of things need to change there. And Mike's right.
And they've been throwing good money after bad on patches on the defense. $5.5 million for Andres Sekera, who is a flawed player. He's not bad, but he's not a good defensive player. They need somebody who's a two-way guy. For almost $4 million on re-signing Justin Schultz on a short-term deal. Now they want to get rid of him. Mark Fane, Andrew Ferentz, Eric Greiber. These are all patches. They're not solutions.
No, but some of them, each one of them individually makes sense. That's the problem with this team. Like Ferentz, I thought was a great signing for them because he's going to bring some experience and what they really need, like some kind of grit. Like this team doesn't play desperate enough. When you watch Edmonton, they don't play desperate hockey. They play very smooth hockey, but they don't play desperate hockey. Eberle plays desperate hockey. There's a couple guys on the team that actually do, but not many.
They went heavy. They went heavy on defense in last year's draft, but otherwise. They haven't, other than Nurse and other than Clefbaum, they don't have defensemen to show for it. Eric Gustafsson, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to play in the NHL. So Mike's point is well taken. Now, maybe last year's draft will help him, but that's not going to help him for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, defense takes such a long time. So
they really are so behind the 8 ball with this. And I know in some other circuits and other shows they're being nicer. They're saying, well, maybe it's next year or whatever. We could be looking at 2 or 3 more years of this, even adding good pieces for them, because it's the entire team. It's not just about talent. It's about everything.
But the failure for this year is, because I think Chiarelli is one of the better GMs in the league. I think McClellan is a top coach. The failure here is absolutely no progress whatsoever. The same mistakes, the same bad defense. Yeah. Alex Chason last night in the game against Ottawa walked through the Edmonton defense like they were pylons.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been no progress. Yes, great. The excitement in McDavid. He's an all-world talent. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the league, no doubt. I'm very, very impressed with Draisaitl's progress this year. They have talent, but defensively, where you need, that's the difference between winning and losing. They're still an AHL caliber team defensively.
Oh yeah, no question about it. We'll move on, but they're going to be fun to watch because I think when you look at a lot of other teams who've fallen down that low, I think about Pittsburgh when they got Crosby and Malkin. You think about Chicago when they get Taves and Kane. They managed to get just a couple top picks and build around them and make it strong. This is a team that's had so many top picks that maybe they have too many stars or something. Maybe there's just not enough puck to go around. There's something to this team. I mean, there's something else. There's something deeper to this team that.
Well, I think it's a lack of drafting defensemen. I mean, Eric Gustafson's got like 9 points for Chicago. He's a +9. He's no longer with them. And then when you start looking at the rest, it's Clefbaum and Nurse, and then the guys they drafted last year. There's nothing really else in their system defensively, and so that's been their flaw. It's been their flaw for a lot of years.
Yeah, that's for sure.
This mimics Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh, it wasn't just Crosby and Malkin. It was Crosby, Malkin, Fleury, Jordan Staal, Ryan Whitney. They were all.
Remember, there was like Sergei Gonchar. They had these straight up, veterans.
Right, and there was, they brought in Gary Roberts.
Yeah.
To be sort of a veteran leader. Maybe that was what the idea was with Andrew Ferris, but Andrew Ferris.
That's what it was, but it just hasn't worked. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, a lot of their picks, like I thought Pouliot was a brilliant pick, and I still think it was a good pickup for them. And I think that's a player that has played pretty well for them, but. Purcell is another one I thought was a good pick, but he's probably going to be moved.
Yeah.
Let's move on. There's some rumors here. This is John Scott's helmet in the Hall of Fame. So let's throw it out there.
John Scott, who the movie
right.
Mitch Albom is going to write the screenplay for the John Scott movie.
Well, at least he's a hockey guy. That's good.
Yeah, at least he's a hockey guy. Well, so you have the All-Star helmet. This reminds me of the Franklin Institute, which I mentioned before, which has Andy Delmore's gloves in them.
Yes, I've seen that.
So straight in the Franklin Institute, there's a little in Philadelphia, which is like the science exhibit. There's a whole exhibit about sports and how your body moves and works. And and they have Donovan McNabb's jersey, which is kind of outdated, but still he's a star. They had Allen Iverson's jersey, which is another outdated player who's not here anymore, but still he was a star. And then Andy Delmore's gloves under glass, like this player who played for the Flyers for a couple years, had like one very memorable playoff series. I can only assume that this was put together during that playoff series, so I don't know. And I actually got a chance to at one point. I know somebody who knows Andy Delmore pretty well, and he thought it was hilarious too that it still exists. It's there for sure. But all the players
you gotta help Andy Delmore out. He's at DELYLAMA5 on Twitter. He's only got 1,000 followers. We got to help him out. I'm going to follow him. Yep.
All right. Yeah.
But before we get to rumors, just want to mention because it was reported by ESPN. I think Russ mentioned this. Eddie Belfour sold his gold medal from the 2002 Salt Lake Olympics for $35,000 in the last couple days.
What did I say? I said it might get 50, right?
You were at like 150. You said over 200.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I said that high.
Yeah, we got to go. We need a tape. We need to go back. I'm telling you, you guys are both.
I said 50.
You were both over 100,000. I swear.
I think I was over 100,000, but apparently he sold it so he could invest in a distilling business.
Oh boy.
There's too many jokes that can come from that, so I'm just going to leave that hanging there.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
He's thinking billions of dollars for a distilling business.
Yeah, distill. We move on. Yes. All right. So Andrew Ladd, he's the next player we have to talk about. Again, more and more stuff coming out about Andrew Ladd that he's going to be dealt in the very near future. I talked to some people who don't think it's going to be past tomorrow with Andrew Ladd. I do think, as is typically the case, we get our trade deadline screwed up by some of these major trades happening before the trade deadline. That's one of them I think that could. And it sounds like it's two teams now. It sounds like it's Chicago or Florida, and those are the two places he could go.
Well, he didn't practice today. I just saw a report that he was having a maintenance day, so he wasn't on the ice. So that may add to the potential.
In other words, a packing day.
Yes.
Yeah, he's going to be had to pack. And when you're in Winnipeg, you can't exactly just leave on the next plane. So I'm sure they have things they have to put together there. So yeah, I think that I think that's going to be gone. I'm really curious how much he gets because I think that trade could set the market. really, because I don't think we've had a market-setting trade yet for the top forwards. So I think he's the one.
If it's Chicago, I think their first round pick will definitely be included.
Yeah. Now I'm pretty sure.
If you're the Blackhawks, I mean, that seems so pointless if you're the Blackhawks to me.
Pointless?
No, just in the terms of I know where. No, but I mean, Chicago does have to realize that they need to plan for the future a little bit. I mean, they traded their first round draft pick for Vermette last year. They got a Stanley Cup, granted.
Why?
That's awesome.
They got Panarin for free.
But they draft well.
They draft well. So, but I mean, the first round, you still I guess maybe I'm wrong.
But think about it. They signed Panarin. Anybody could have had him. They get him. They signed Eric Gustafsson. He was a draft pick of the Oilers. They got him. They signed him to a deal. These are free guys that they're getting. So
they signed Trevor Van Riemsdyk as a college free agent for nothing. Right. They signed Kyle Baun as a free agent. Now I don't know what he's doing, but they can add players and they can attract players because they're the Blackhawks. Who doesn't want to play with Taves and Kane?
True. Hey,
I gotta say, there's a milestone reached, Deck. You didn't talk about it yesterday. Right. But, Mike Richards, in 15 games, he got his first goal.
I was going to talk about it. It was on my list. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But he's a -2. And, again, how many times do I have to hear he's good in a room? If I'm the GM, I might be looking for somebody else. Honestly, I mean, you guys tell me. Is good in the room enough?
Well, it's not just that he's good in the room. In my opinion, Mike Richards is a good playoff player. And I think that in the 2 runs with the Kings, he was very good in both of them. I mean, and I think that's why I would hold on to him. I would wait because the Washington Capitals are in dire need of playoff performers. That they need somebody. They got Justin Williams the same way, so having Justin Williams and Mike Richards in there, I think will help them win a playoff series.
The Caps picked up Mike Weber yesterday from the Sabres as a depth defenseman.
Yep. Right.
And I saw it reported they're at the 50 contract limit. So now McClellan, their GM, has to come to the decision if they go out and make a trade at the deadline, is the guy that they're trading for better than Mike Richards?
Right.
If he is, then Mike Richards gets placed on unconditional waivers and they walk away from the contract.
Richards had 10 points in 26 games on the last Stanley Cup run. It was a -6. So I would argue that he was this great playoff performer. I think he was okay. He was much better a few years before that. He was.
He was great. He was great in 2012.
Right.
I do remember the last playoff run, though. He had that big game against Anaheim that got him through that series. I mean, there are certain moments that Mike Richards shines on. He scored. He had these. That game. The Ducks would have won that series if it wasn't for Mike Richards. That basically came down to like a play or two he made at the end of that game.
But I'm just saying, now we're in 2016.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. Completely true. Now Russ is heading to to Colorado, I guess tonight or tomorrow. When are you going?
I'm actually heading out there Friday morning.
Okay, Friday morning. And did you see Dino Ciccarelli's comments?
No, I didn't. But I'm happy that I get to cover Dino Ciccarelli because he had such a colorful career. If people go look him up on Google, they'll find some amazing stories on Dino. But he is a great. I mean, he's a 500 goal guy. I mean, end of the day.
Interesting.
I'm sure
this is what he said.
Okay.
This is what Dino said. This is in Mike Russo's column or blog. Okay, in the Star Tribune in Minnesota. Dino Ciccarelli said he's disgusted with the way the Avs are treating the Red Wings, saying, quote, Waugh and Forsberg have said they don't want any interaction between the two teams. Next week's game will be intense, end quote. Should be interesting. And if
I love it. No, this is great.
I know, Russo says it should be interesting. And if you know Dino, you know he's not just joking around.
He's not joking around. Dino Ciccarelli does not joke. And I got to tell you, this is the first time we've ever heard the word intense and alumni game. I can't wait.
Dino Ciccarelli doesn't joke around. Ask Luke Richardson.
Right.
Oh, I can tell you flat out from knowing Forsberg very well that he's not joking around either.
He's not joking. Peter Forsberg, he's a very cordial guy, but he's a very serious guy.
And he is very, very anti-Detroit. I mean,
yes.
When the Flyers signed Forsberg, Detroit offered way more money to get him, and the Flyers picked him up.
They did. So now I have to ask the question. I've covered a lot of alumni games. Is it possible that the NHL could hand out a suspension that would stop a guy from playing in the future alumni game.
If Claude Leduc gets anywhere close to God, who was the guy he slammed in? Oh, Chris Draper. If he gets anywhere clearly to Chris Draper, there's going to be a bench clearing problem.
Like Cicerelli's not going to be able to play until they play the Elk Club in 3 weeks. You mean like that kind of thing? Like he's out?
But no. I mean, like, is Brendan Shanahan the alumni guy that decides that if Cicerelli gets out of hand that he's suspended from the next alumni game that the Red Wings play in?
Well, he's not. He's not the head of the Department of Player Safety anymore, Russ. Well, what will be interesting?
No, but that's the point. He's retired from the Department of Head of Safety, so are all these other guys.
He's an alumni Department of Head of Safety.
Right.
I like it. I think there needs to be a whole alumni organization that NHL's.
They better get somebody. I'm telling you, they better get somebody now.
Yeah, where's Clarence Campbell when you need him?
Yeah.
No, I mean completely. This is crazy. Oh my gosh.
Campbell is dead.
I know.
Oh, I love it.
But Dino Cicerelli trash talking before the alumni game is definitely my play of the day. That's got to be my play of the day because that to me is incredible. And I think that Forsberg, I know that Forsberg and Dino, they're going to. This is going to be real. I mean, this is going to be.
Okay, so let's do the over/under on when Osgood and Patrick Waugh will fight at center ice.
No, Patrick Waugh is not going to fight. He won't.
He's not.
No.
Well,
he bored them to death, but he's not going to fight.
He slammed against the plexiglass. He can shoot.
No. Listen, he's not going to fight. He will just sit in his crease and watch everything. I can guarantee you, he's not fighting in this game.
Yeah. But my gosh, I'm jealous, Russ, that you're going to see this because this to me is going to be.
I told you I thought it was going to be good. Now
I know. If it wasn't right before the trade deadline, I would have gone. But I can't even be in the air that long. I got to really be like sharp. So. And now, it was a good idea I didn't go.
Fantastic.
But anyway, there you have it. Scott Hennon's retired after 16 seasons in the NHL. That's also out there, too.
I forgot he was still playing. Okay.
Yep. Gossipier's streak is over.
Yep.
All that stuff I said about Philadelphia yesterday being in it is done.
Yeah. Let's just stop that for 1 second. I remember telling you that Carolina is a problem team for the Flyers because of, like you said, they're not too high, they're not too low, they're right in the middle.
And I agreed with you. I did. I did agree with you.
You did.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that the Flyers will lose this game and then beat the Chicago Blackhawks next week. But, at the end of the day, you got to win both of those games to make the playoffs, so they really are in trouble.
And Carolina is making Ron Francis's life a living hell.
Oh, they really are.
Because now I believe they're only 2 points out of the wild card. I'm looking it up as we speak, and they play in Toronto tomorrow, so there's almost a guaranteed 2 points.
Yeah.
They have 66 points. The Devils have 67. Pittsburgh has 68. So it's. If they stay that close, I don't know whether they trade Stahl or not.
Maybe we're in an era now where, these big names like the Stahls and the Stamkoses and maybe even Yandel, maybe they don't get traded. Maybe this is like, hey, teams just have to ride it out with these guys, and that's the way it is. I mean, I know that's not what's happened in the past, but you never know.
And believe me, the Canadian networks are praying on both knees with their hands folded together. The Ottawa Senators are at 64 points and have won 4 games in a row, and they're praying that they get back in this race so they have at least one Canadian team on TV for the playoffs.
By the way, a couple of days ago, Carey Price did skate without pads. How long are the Canadians going to keep asking this guy to skate without pads?
Well, he skated.
If he's going to skate, just have him skate someplace else. I mean, just like, does he have to skate at the practice facility without pads? I mean, that's a silly thing.
He skated 75 minutes today without pads. So they had him on the ice for an hour and 15 minutes skating around on a bad knee without pads.
But they've already said he's shut down for the season. So what?
Yes, but they dispute that. They're saying that's not. If they get to the playoffs, I hate to tell you, Montreal, you're not getting to the playoffs.
No.
Did they do this to Smarty Jones after he got hurt? Was it Smarty Jones that got hurt? I don't remember.
The horse?
No, that was Ruffian, and then they shot him.
Oh, no,
that was Spendabuck. Come on, that was Spendabuck. Or Spectacular Bid. One of those two. Yeah.
Aladar.
Aladar, Seattle Slew. Come on.
What was the Philly horse? Which one was the
Firmed.
Ruffian.
No. Lately, it was more recent.
Oh.
I'll pull it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow, the show just came to a drastic stop there.
Yes,
Let's talk some rumors, please.
Rumors? What? Yeah. Okay.
What are those?
What are those? I honestly, I will tell you this much. Right now, the hockey world is gone very quiet, and I've been getting calls all morning, but it's like it is a little silent, which always makes me wonder what the hell is going on. All right, I will put something up. But while I'm pulling something up here from my text this morning.
It was Smarty Jones. Okay.
No, you're right. You're right. I think that makes sense.
You guys.
Smarty Jones was from New Jersey, right? He was a New Jersey horse, I think.
Maybe New Jersey, but everybody in Philly acted like he was from Philly, you know.
I was definitely from New Jersey.
Ruffian was the one who got in. It was in the match race with Foolish Pleasure in the 70s.
Yeah, I remember the Ruffian one. That was sad. Yeah.
And Ruffian ran into a bird on the track, broke its leg, and they had to shoot it, put it out its misery on the track.
Yeah,
that was a pleasant memory for a kid like me. I was like 8, 9 years old. It's like, oh, look at these cute horses, and then they shot the horse on the.
Hey, listen, but you're talking about Joe Ducky Medwick in bottles. I mean, Jesus, I mean, that's almost a century ago. Come on.
Hey,
we're talking about Eric Stahl, and there's a couple guys on. There still are rumors out there that Pittsburgh is interested in Eric Stahl, which is, I'm telling you, it's not, and it won't go away. So for what it's worth, just
go away.
We don't know. We wish it would, but it's not going away. The other thing, I was talking to somebody in Calgary here, and I was looking at my notes, and a couple guys that are definitely available in Calgary, and they've sort of been kind of flying under the radar a little bit. Like David Jones, is possible. Yuri Hudler is possible.
I heard a connection between Hudler and New Jersey, which would make sense because I think Jersey needs offense, and his salary is not completely out of whack.
Yeah, we've been talking about Hudler the last couple of days for sure.
Yeah.
Can we bring up the Hartnell talk because?
Yeah, Hartnell for sure. Yep.
Now,
yeah, because there's a lot of that's another team that.
Yeah, you know what it was? The show that you weren't on, Mike and I talked about Hudler.
Oh, okay.
Elliot Friedman yesterday in his 30 Thoughts column mentioned a 1-for-1 Nashville and Pittsburgh, or Nashville and Columbus, Colin Wilson for Scott Hartnell, which would make sense.
Geez, where did that come from?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Really?
I put on a column 31 Thoughts. Do you think Elliot would get mad? I should ask him next time I see him.
Really?
I'm going to one-up him. I'm going to go 31 Thoughts.
Yeah, I see. My problem is I don't have 30 thoughts in a day. So to me, this is.
See, I have 30 thoughts, but 20 of them are our food.
But this is insane. Colin Wilson for Hartnell is absolutely possible. It has been absolutely possible since it almost happened when Johansson got traded for Jones.
Yeah.
Right. It is still very possible. The two players are basically looked at the same way by their teams they're with now. They're looked at, as players who are underperforming, but who have potential. Hartnell's contract is a little more intense. Hartnell would love to go back to Nashville, and Nashville would love to have him back.
And Wilson's under contract for another 3 years, making a little under $4 million. Hartnell's 3 years at a little under $5 million. So there's not a great disparity there. But the talk in the last couple days has been Hartnell to Pittsburgh, like I believe you had mentioned, Dak.
Oh yeah.
You look at Pittsburgh. Who are they trading to make that deal possible? Because
I say this all the time, Mike. That's not. That's fool's thought because you have no idea. Like the idea, and I get that the logic police out there have to say that this can't possibly happen, and but to me, I know who are they trading in, but at the same time. They're definitely talking about getting Hartnell, so they must have a plan in place.
Oh, I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like
it is confusing, and I don't know. I mean, there's these things. They're pretty shocking. Like, how could Eric Stahl land on most teams? I mean, will they have to eat part of Hartnell's contract? They probably will. Hartnell, and then there's the Columbus-Pittsburgh thing, which is the NHL's trying to turn into this rivalry that it should be, and they had a great playoff series, so there's something there, and they're. Historically, I mean, Ohio State and Pitt. I mean, these are teams these are states that hate each other, right? So this should work.
But yeah. It's tough to quantify looking at Pittsburgh's roster how they could fit almost $5 million. Now, granted, Columbus could eat some of the money.
Yep.
But there's limits because Columbus is a budget team, so they're not going to eat a ton of money.
They're getting close to the cap these days too.
Right. So I mean, to move, there's not a comparable player unless they trade a guy like Carl Hagelin who's making $4, but they wouldn't do that because Hagelin.
I think it's Hornquist. I think they got Hagelin, and if they're going to lose a guy that's making $4 million, it's Patrick Hornquist.
But Hornquist has been one of the guys who's performed well with Crosby.
But again, you can put anybody with Crosby. If they feel like Hartnell's the thing they're missing, Hornquist will probably go in some sort of deal. But here's my problem, okay? I like Scott Hartnell, right? But I hate his contract. Right. And if Nashville gets him and they don't win the Stanley Cup, Nashville will start to decline with that contract. It will start to sink them. Same thing with Pittsburgh. This might be the last topple for Pittsburgh. If they take on a contract like this, this could be the thing that topples them if they don't win too. Because, again, getting lower on prospects. I mean, Pittsburgh's prospects are okay. Nashville's are okay. But they're like middle to lower of the pack as far as good prospects, how many they have. And you start taking on deals like this, because you know Hartnell's wheels are going to come off at some point.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good.
He's scoring this year. I think he's got almost 20 goals. So I mean, he still is an effective player now, but he's a now player. He's not somebody like you said, Russ.
Cavier hit 20 goals.
Right.
Yeah, for sure, no question.
We just have to remind people that the wheels, when they come off quick sometimes.
Before we do the lottery simulator, I got a little trivia question for you guys.
Right.
Okay, so there's a Sportsnet stats, which is a really good thing to follow.
Follow on Twitter, yeah.
On Twitter, they have the most goals from the 2003 NHL draft. The top 4 players from this draft. You may have seen it, so I don't know if you know. But did you see this, Mike, or no?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so that's a really there are 4 players either at like very close to 300 goals or greater from the 203 draft.
2003 draft, yeah.
2003 draft, right? 403 through the 2003 draft, and the least amount of goals is 297. The most is 321. Can you name any of those 4 players from that draft? Eric Stahl, 321. He's the top guy.
Trying to remember the order of this draft. I know Fleury was the first pick, so obviously.
Yeah.
Thomas Vanek.
Thomas Vanek, number 3, 315. So now you have 2 to go.
Yeah, it's too bad. He scores a lot of goals. I'll take a flyer on this one and go Shea Weber just for the fun of it.
Nope, not in the top 4 at least.
Yeah.
This is the super draft. This is the big draft.
Let's see.
How about Corey Perry?
Corey Perry, number 2, with 319. Now all you have is left is number 4 with 297.
297, number 4.
How about his teammate Getzlaf?
No, that's a good guess though. Nope.
No, it's not Getzlaf. Shoot.
I'll give you a hint. This player in his career has played on 3 different teams.
I'm going to go Andrew Ladd.
Nope.
I think he was a year before, wasn't he?
He might have been, yeah. I think he was definitely.
This was the Mike Richards draft, correct?
Yep.
Yep. Jeff Carter.
Jeff Carter, good guess. Number 4. There we go. So it's pretty cool. All right, picking a winner in the lottery simulator.
Shea Weber's got 161. He let me down. That's a lot for a defenseman, though.
That's a lot for a defenseman, for sure. That was a heck of a draft.
It was.
And to have 4 guys with 300 goals already from that draft. It's pretty crazy. All right, the lottery simulator, where every Leaf fan comes to die. Here we go. The winner, the Ottawa Senators. The worst possible. That's the next up, the Calgary Flames. And finally, the Montreal Canadiens. We're talking, TSN's very happy with this draft.
Wow! This has never happened.
Think about that. And then continuing on, look at Edmonton, Toronto. So the top 5 picks in this draft would be Canadian teams. Wow.
This has never happened.
No.
Yeah, I think there would be some massive strokes in the boardroom of MLSE if that happened.
Can you imagine that?
Ladd was 2004. 2004, the next year.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Hold on one second.
That's amazing. All those Canadian teams.
Yep. So,
Which, by the way, I'm still going to say that the best chance is still